All right, so today we're going to learn the absolute essentials of introducing yourself in French, but we're going to do it through a story. We'll follow a newcomer named Amrit as he figures out his first conversations in Montreal. So let's jump right in. Okay, picture this. You're in a brand new place. You're surrounded by a language you're just learning, and someone hands you a simple form. Suddenly, that form feels like a huge test, right? Well, that's exactly where our story starts, with Amrit, who's just landed in Montreal and happens to meet a friendly local, Julia, in a cafe. And this kicks off chapter 1 of Amrit's little Odyssey. He's got this registration form to fill out, and lucky for him, Julia is there to help him with that first, all-important question. Who are you? So Julia starts with the absolute basics. She says, Pour commencer, tu dois dire ton nom. Dis je m'appelle Amrit, ou alors mon nom est Amrit, which just means to start, you have to say your name. Say, my name is Amrit, or my name is Amrit. Okay, let's hit pause on the story for a sec and break that down. The first big theme we're tackling here is identité et orthographe. That's identity and spelling. These are the building blocks for any introduction. You gotta get these right. Now, what's the deal with these two phrases? They both mean my name is, but there's a subtle difference. Think of je m'appelle as your everyday go-to phrase for chatting with people. Mon nom est is a little more formal. It's perfect for something official, like that form Amrit is staring at. The takeaway? For daily use, je m'appelle is your best friend. Okay, back to the story. Amrit, who's already thinking ahead, asks a really smart question. Et si on me demande d'épeler? And what if they ask me to spell it? Great point, right? Especially if your name isn't super common in Quebec. And Julia's answer brings us to our next keyword, épeler, which is the verb to spell. To do that, of course, you need to know l'alphabet, the French alphabet. Now, a lot of the letters sound pretty similar to English, but you definitely want to practice the ones that are different. And French spelling has another layer to it, accents. And here they are. French uses all these different accents and signs that can change how a letter sounds or are just part of getting the spelling right. You've got the accent aigu, the accent grave, the circumflex, the tréma, and then there's the cédille, which makes a C sound like an S, and the trait d'union, or hyphen, which you see in names like Marie-Claude. All right, let's move on to chapter 2 and see what's next. After the form, Amrit and Julia start looking at some job postings. And this brings up the next big piece of an introduction, what you do for a living. So our theme for this chapter is, you guessed it, les professions. And this is where French grammar starts to get really interesting, especially when it comes to gender. So as Julia explains to Amrit, a ton of job titles in French actually change depending on if you're talking about a man or a woman. A male teacher is an enseignant, but a female teacher is an enseignante. A male nurse is an infirmier, a female nurse is an infirmière. You see the pattern, right? Director, programmer, seller. A lot of the time, the feminine form adds an E, or sometimes the ending changes completely, like with directrice. This is a really fundamental part of French grammar. Julia then rattles off a few more possibilities for Amrit. But here's some good news. Some jobs, like comptable for accountant or journalist for journalist, actually have the same spelling for men and women. That makes things a little easier. Others, like musicien, change to musicienne. And for Amrit, his current job title is pretty simple. Étudiant, a student. Moving on, Amrit and Julia go for a walk in the park, and it is buzzing with people from all over the world. It's the perfect backdrop for Chapter 3, talking about your roots. This brings us to our next theme. Origine, résidence, et nationalité. This is such a huge part of getting to know someone, and it's also where a really common mistake gets made. So let's make sure we nail this one. Pour l'origine, dis je viens de. For your origins, say I come from. She uses the example je viens du Canada, which means I come from Canada. This phrase is specifically about where you're from originally. Okay, pay close attention, because this might be the most important distinction we talk about today. Je viens de means I come from, talking about your origins, your roots. J'habite à means I live in, talking about where you live right now. So Amrit comes from India, but he now lives in Montreal. He would say je viens d'Inde, but j'habite à Montréal. It's a simple difference, but a huge one to master. And this idea extends to talking about other people too. Julia points to a woman who vient de France, comes from France. So elle est française, she is French. And a man who vient du Mexique, comes from Mexico. Therefore, il est mexicain, he is Mexican. See, your country of origin is directly linked to your nationality. Now, anyone who's been to Montreal knows it's super bilingual and incredibly multicultural. Amrit is just blown away by all the different languages he's hearing, which leads us right into chapter 4. The theme here is langues, languages, and the key phrase could not be easier. Je parle, which means I speak. You just tack the language on at the end. Je parle anglais for I speak English. Je parle français for I speak French. Simple as that. And in a city like Montreal, you're going to hear a whole mix. Julia points out French, English, and Spanish, Español, but also German, which is Allemand, Russian, Rus, Arabic, Arab, and Mandarin. Knowing how to say which languages you speak is a fantastic way to make a connection. All right, for our final chapter, Julia helps Amrit with the more personal side of things, how to talk about his life and his family situation. Our last theme is état civil et famille. That's marital status and family. On a form or just in conversation, this might come up. The main options are célibataire for single, marié for married, with an extra E for woman, marié, divorcé for divorced, and conjoint de fait, which is a very Quebecois term for a common law partner. Amrit confirms he is célibataire. And the next logical question is usually about children. If you have a child, you'd say, j'ai un enfant. You can get more specific with un garçon for a boy or une fille for a girl. And if you don't have any, like Amrit, the phrase is, je n'ai pas d'enfant. I don't have children. And with that, Amrit's crash course is complete. He's so happy, he exclaims, Merci, Julia. Maintenant, je peux me présenter. Thanks, Julia. Now I can introduce myself. He went from being totally lost with a form to having all the essential tools for his new life. So there you have it. Amrit's journey has given us a complete roadmap for a basic French introduction. You now have the key phrases to talk about your name, your job, where you're from, and your family. So I'm going to turn the final question over to you. Et vous? Comment vous appelez-vous? Give it a shot using what you've just learned. Thanks for tuning in.